Are you ready? Let's go. Ready?
Ready.
Yeah, ready when you are.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Holden Shepherd, Heidi Anderson, Jan Latta, Alison Patterson, welcome to my little show.
Why do you call it a little chat show?
Jan Nichols, Sam Eichen, Annabelle Smith, Donna Mazza, Rebecca Watson, Jonelle Fraser, Tracy Jacobson, Adam Wallace, Monique Mulligan, Matt Glover, Karen Young. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Welcome to my show. Welcome to another edition of Josh Langley Gets to Know. Now, before we meet our guest and we talk about some very serious topics, Inspiring Kids, my social and emotional learning program for primary schools, is now live. It is out there and it is going to, well, it will change and it can change the way social and emotional learning can be taught in the classroom. I've designed it so it's easy for teachers to use and actually highly engaging for kids. It's simply plug and play. So you play the videos of me. I heard the term sage on the stage the other day, and so I'm going to use that. I am the sage on the stage, just talking to kids about what's important. So covering the topics of feelings and emotions, resilience, it's okay to make mistakes, don't overthink things, how to avoid overthinking things, creativity, also self-acceptance, being you is enough, you're okay the way you are, and a whole bunch of other topics over 4 modules, 27 videos, very short, fun activities that go with these videos. And it's being used in a school in Queensland at the moment, and the take-up is happening right across Australia as we speak. So if you want to find out more, just go to my website. You can have a preview of one of the videos there about gratitude. Just go to joshlangley.com.au, where I've got the web address here, and hopefully we can sort of grow and nurture this generation of kids to be kinder, more self-accepting, and be the leaders of tomorrow. Let's meet our special guest, Jeremy Kalbstein. Jeremy is an author, educator, and creator of the Empathy Initiative, which I just love. That's why I wanted him on my show. So in this episode, you're going to get to know what the Empathy Initiative is, what motivates Jeremy, and how important it is for kids and for parents and for schools. So basically, it's a series of workshops and presentations that help kids learn to be an upstander to cyberbullying, so they can identify it and they can have the courage to actually do something about it. And also the impact of multitasking and screen time, and giving kids some skills and ways to navigate that really complicated space. So please sit down or stand up, go walking, go jogging, whatever you want to do. But listen to this really interesting and informative interview with Jeremy Kalbstein. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me. How are you going?
I'm good. Very good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I am really good. Now, we're going to talk about empathy and we're going to talk about online, but I think I've got the perfect way to kick us off today is that I've put a post up on social media, and it was something along the lines of the way we build empathy in kids is getting them to understand their own feelings first. And funnily enough, I had a comment from sort of like a vague Facebook friend, and they put up and said, no, leave them alone. If you can just be there in love and light, then they will be able to open up and tell them what they're feeling themselves. I bet, and then you finish off with, I bet you don't even understand your own feelings. And I'm just going, okay, this is an interesting reaction here. The whole point is that we're all still learning our own feelings. We're all still trying to understand them. And then once we learn what we understand, then we can try and teach that to kids so they can be better, upstanding people. And that leads us on to this question of empathy and online, because I could easily have just jumped back in and gone, what the hell are you saying? But this is that space we're trying to help kids to navigate, because I think you and I were talking a little while ago about how online at the moment, especially, is not a great space to be learning empathy, and especially for kids. So I reckon let's start. Let's define what is empathy.
Well, empathy. Well, essentially, I look at it as kind of like a four-part. Well, I suppose four parts to empathy. And I have a little thing I put together to think, feel, care, and do is what empathy is to me. So thinking about it from the perspective of the other person and not judging them. Trying to understand their feelings in that particular situation. And then looking at your own feelings, which is what you were just talking about, but understanding your own feelings and try and then connect your feelings to the other person's feelings. So you have that care sort of development, and then actioning that and doing something about it to help the other person in some way. So it's just think, feel, care, do.
Right. Okay. I like that. Nice and simple, because it's like, I like the do bit, because it's usually, well, I find that there is a lot of, not disingenuousness, but people throw the word kindness around and empathy around. And it's like, you got a t-shirt saying kind is cool and all that sort of stuff. But it can just be like, we're just paying lip service, but we're not actually doing it. And so I like the fact that you've got that other bit where it's the do bit that really puts the empathy and the kindness in action, which I think a lot of people have trouble doing.
Otherwise it's more like sympathy in a way. It's like you understand how the other person feels, but you're not really doing anything about it. So it's not really changing anything or helping anybody. And that's what you want empathy to be about. It's to help somebody else, and you'll feel good doing it as well. So it helps you.
Now, you're a sort of bit of an expert in the online space for kids. You were saying that social media and that online space is not good for nurturing empathy. Can you sort of talk about that a bit?
I don't know if it's not good for it. I think it can be good for it. I just think that, I mean, look, I love technology. You know, all my roles in education have been around the use of technology and using it for creativity, for communication, and a range of different things. So it's a fantastic thing. So I'm in no way saying don't use technology or anything like that, but it's how it's used that is the key part to this. And a lot of social media and other ways that technology is used or can be used is quite negative at times and can be narcissistic and not bring out the best in people. And so we want people to use it, but in a positive way, both for themselves and for others. So empathy online is more challenging because there hasn't been a lot done in that area until recent times. So that's what I'm trying to do, is to improve that situation. We're never going to change technology. People are still going to be using it, you know, for years. It's only going to get more and more embedded within our lives than it already is. So it's about finding the right way around using that technology and making sure that you're not harming people and, if possible, helping people. So it can be quite negative in terms of cyberbullying and stalking and grooming and all these negative things that we all hear about, and scams and whatever there is out there. But there's a lot of positive stuff that can be done as well. And you can also show empathy digitally. And so part of, you know, what I've been developing is about building empathy, but also leading that into being an upstander. And so trying to help people online. And the help doesn't mean that you have to then take the hits. There are certain ways that you can go around, you know, so you avoid that, but just helping the other person can be done in many different ways, online and in person.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because I speak to a lot of parents, or I hear a lot of stories about, you know, where their, you know, 10-year-old child is playing Roblox or Minecraft or whatever. And because they're all played online, and recently, obviously, with New South Wales and Victoria being in such a lockdown period, that's their go-to place to connect with friends. But as you know, with friends groups, they can be so picky, and you can be ostracized within the second. If you don't do this, we're going to shut you out of the group, and all that sort of stuff. And that, obviously, in those spaces where the parents are understanding what's happening, where the parents know what's happening. So I think last time you and I spoke on series 1, you talked about how it's important for parents to understand what their kids are playing and to actually play with them, and to understand it and actually get into the fun of it and go, okay, this is what it is. This is the space. This is the people they're playing with, and stuff like that. And I'm just trying to work out where I'm going with this, because as you know, this is a multi-headed sort of thing. And it's like every parent, every family situation is different, but the commonalities are is how the kids are interacting with each other online and the spaces that can be created where the bullying can take place, and how I think what you're trying to say is what you're wanting to do is equip a child with the ability to be an upstander if they see someone being bullied or whatever online. Now, how is that?
Yes.
How in regards to how do you teach someone to do that, to be an upstander?
Well, it's about giving them the options available in how to do it. So it's not always about necessarily, typing something. If it's a cyberbullying example, it's not about necessarily typing something and putting yourself in the line of fire. It might be, it might not be. And it comes down to the individual as to what they feel most comfortable with. So it's very similar to the same way you've been upstander for a physical bullying situation. You can put yourself in the way, you can try and distract, you can tell a trusted adult, you can just offer support to the person who is the target of the bullying. And it doesn't have to be at that moment, it can be after it's happened or in some other media or way. So it doesn't always have to be putting yourself in harm's way, and it shouldn't be putting yourself in harm's way. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, don't do that. There are other ways that you can get around that, but at least let that person know that you're there for them and you can support them, or tell it, like I said, a trusted adult who can help with the situation. But just don't leave it alone. So, because basically in any bullying or cyberbullying situation, if anybody who is present in that situation has a role to play. So even if you're not the one doing it or involved in any, obvious, tangible way, you're still connected by being a bystander. So then you have a decision to make. Are you going to let it go and ignore it? And then by being a bystander, you're actually contributing to the situation by not doing anything, or you're going to do something about it and try and change the narrative. And that's where I'm coming from, that I want people to be able to make that choice and choose to do something and make a change to this person's life that will hopefully help them in the long term. And I'm talking from experience as somebody who was bullied as a kid. So, I know how it feels, and I've been asked if I could share that with other people.
What about from the point of view of, we know what kids are like when they're in groups and they so want to belong, and they don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to be left out. Even if they are part of the, one of the successful members of a group, and they see someone being bullied or someone's been harangued online or something like that, but they don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to make waves. How do you get them to suddenly have that courage to say to their mate, go, hey, what are you doing? Is this what you talk about in your online, in your course that you take to schools? It
is, yeah. And it's a similar thing. Again, like, you've got to find what is the most comfortable way of dealing with it for yourself. You don't want to put yourself in harm's way. So again, it can be speaking to a trusted adult to get some advice and the best way to handle it. Or just, like I said, just offering support, or, if it's like, one of the things I cover is if it's your friend who is the bully or the person doing the bullying. I hate labeling people, but if it's them, to try to, there's also feeling empathy for that person, because usually there's a reason that person is behaving in the way they're behaving, and it's not, it's probably because they're not in a good place. So trying to understand what it might be that's causing them to behave this way, and then it's the same sort of thing. Well, how are you going to deal with it? Are you going to choose to be a bystander and let it go, or are you going to stand up and try and help that person? So it works for both the person behaving inappropriately and the person on the end of that, the other end of that.
Yeah, okay. Because I know that I saw a survey a little while ago, and it was asking parents, what do you, I've got to work out how it was worded now. It was something like, what do you worry about more, your child being bullied or your child being the bully? And parents are more worried about their child being the bully. And I found that really, really interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, who wants to be a parent of somebody who's doing the wrong thing? Nobody wants to. I mean, you don't want either, of course, but you'd hate to sort of be in that situation. And I think a part of that would be that the parents don't know how to deal with that, which is understandable. It's a situation that you wouldn't expect to find yourself in. So it's quite challenging and confronting, I think.
So talk to us about the course that you're creating for schools. So this is called the Empathy Initiative.
Yeah, so the Empathy Initiative is going to be a series of workshops and or presentations, depending on what the schools are interested in. It's aimed at the moment, at upper primary, so from basically year 5 to even lower secondary, year 7. And at the moment, there's 2 sort of key themes, well, 3 in a sense. There's empathy and how to build empathy and so forth is one section of it. And then the second part for the year 5, 6s is about being an upstander. So some of the things we've just been discussing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, which we haven't touched at all, is about multitasking and screen time, that side of things. So
okay,
again, it's not about having too much screen time.
Mm.
On its own. It's not like saying you have to have, if you're 9 or 10 years old, you should be on screens 2 hours a day maximum or anything. It's nothing like that. It's about understanding how, if you're trying to develop the right habits, I suppose, for students as they move into the more senior years of school.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that if you've got your laptop or your computer in front of you, and then you got your phone next to you and maybe your iPad or whatever else on, and you're getting dings every 5 seconds from your friends or whatever's happening, and you're getting distracted all the time, and how that is impacting you, both in terms of your own emotions and your own cognitive capacity. So we don't realize it, but every time we get distracted like that, it impacts our brain, and it tires it out. We have a finite amount of basically focus or concentration that we have every day. And every time we change that focus and bounce back and forth between things and switch really quickly, it actually impacts on it and it drains it. And then our concentration lowers, and it makes it harder for us to focus on what we're trying to study or whatever it is we're trying to do. And it also impacts on our emotions and our feelings and our psychological side of things as well. So it's about understanding the impact of these and trying to limit the amount of distractions you have while you're working on something. So there's a whole thing about multitasking and multi-switching, and people sort of confuse the two and think that if they've got their phone on and they're at their computer, that they're multitasking, but they're not. And that's, or 2% of the population can actually multitask truly, and the rest,
I think multitasking is extremely overrated.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a myth, to be honest.
Yeah.
Or almost a myth. So, so it's about that, but it also looks at digital empathy in terms of social media and these sorts of applications, and how they're designed to be addictive and to be these distractions. So looking at it from the design from an empathic perspective, and understanding why they're designed in the way they are and how that impacts you as well. So it's looking at empathy from a couple of different angles there.
Okay, that's really good, because obviously currently at the moment, Facebook's coming under big scrutiny for having their sort of quiet philosophies exposed to the world about how it's meant to eyeballs on screens and all that sort of stuff, just so they see the ads, which is, hello, that's what radio is. I worked in radio for 25 years. The whole idea, everything was designed to keep you listening so you heard the ads, everything from the competitions to the music and all that sort of stuff. So Facebook is just, it's labeling itself a social media platform, but really it's just designed to keep you watching the ads. But it's the addictive nature of it, that element. So that's what you're teaching these young kids. That's the whole idea, is to go into schools, teach them how these things work, so they're not so blinded to it, I guess.
Yeah, look, it's about raising awareness, really, about what's happening. And then they can make informed decisions about how they want to tackle that, and can give suggestions around that as well. But they then have to put those into their, make them new behaviors, in a sense, new actions, which is a hard thing to do, to change the way you do things. But the benefits are there, and it's really an important thing to be able to do. And you see it more and more everywhere you go, just the attempt at multitasking and how that just doesn't work. I mean, you've got, in some cities around the world, you've got lights on the pavement, so that they show people when the lights have changed from red to green, and vice versa.
Because
everybody's looking down at their phones. Yeah, so they're looking down at their phones and not seeing, so they'll see the lights on the ground. Or you've got terrible lanes where it's got like a line down the middle of the pavement for people with phones and people without phones, so that when they're walking, they won't knock into people.
Seriously,
that's a whole range of things.
Wow. Oh, that's
And there's a term used years ago called smombies, which is smartphone zombies, which is essentially what they are.
I can barely walk and talk at the same time, let alone walk and read my phone at the same time. That's just crazy.
But you see it all the time. You see it everywhere you go.
I actually see people walking across the road, looking at the phone, while they're walking, and they might have a quick look up, but that's about it. And I'm just going,
Exactly.
wow. I suppose it's like, it was 1,000 years ago when I was a teenager, and I struggled enough as a teenager, let alone you put devices in front of me and that 24-hour connection with friends. And we know what it's like. You don't want to miss a notification from your best friend. So it's like, it's all well and good for me to go, I turned off my notifications on my phone, and my mental health just went so much better because I wasn't reacting to every ding. But thing is, if you tell a 12 or 13-year-old to turn down your notifications so you're not reacting and bouncing around, is that going to resonate?
But that's what I'm saying. It's not about turning it down. It's about knowing when to have things accessible and when not to. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
putting boundaries. Is it creating boundaries?
Well, it is, yeah. Well, it's creating structure. And it's about not saying don't use these things, don't go onto social media, don't text message, whatever. It's not about that at all. They're going to be in our lives. So it's about using it in the best and most appropriate way. So if you've got your phone next to you and you're going to do some work, go, okay, I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes or half an hour doing my work. I'm going to turn my phone on silent or on airplane mode or whatever. I'm going to put it upside down or put it away from sight or whatever. I'm going to focus for those next 20 or 30 minutes. Then I'm going to give myself a break. And then I'm going to go check my phone and have a look at the messages and catch up on things and then come back to it or whatever it is, however you choose to do it. But again, it's not about don't do it. It's about just put some, like I said, some boundaries in place. So you set aside time when to do it and understand why that's a benefit to you. So you're not going to miss out. There's no FOMO here. It's like you're just delaying it for, a short period. Hopefully they can deal with it.
So when are you going to create a little course for parents about this too?
Well, I've basically got a presentation that I can do for parents in all these things as well. I've done some already, and I think it's beneficial to parents because again, it comes out the whole thing, understanding your child, feeling that empathy for where they are and why they're doing things, and it'll help your relationship with them. You'll build a stronger relationship, and when it comes to technology, it really comes down to trust. And the last thing you want to do is abuse the trust with your child with their technology, because then they're going to start hiding things from you, and that's when the problems will begin. So you've really got to build that foundation of trust and make sure that you're on the same page and you understand it. And if you show an interest in it, especially for the younger kids, they'll be excited and they'll want to show you more things, and it'll be more of a friendship when it comes to the technology thing. Even though I know parents aren't friends of their kids, and it's not the same relationship, but it doesn't hurt to get to know it a bit better.
So when will your programs be available to roll out in schools? When can they start?
Look, they're going to be ready for next year, for 2022. I am going to be looking for some trials and pilot schools to test them out on. I'd be happy to even try that later this year, maybe, well, I suppose the end of October. We haven't got much time left, but maybe, towards the end of the year, towards the end of November and early December, especially when schools have finished their reports and everything and they're looking for activities to do. This could be a great way to fill in some time while they test it out and give me some feedback, and then be ready to go for next year.
And there's an online version, plus there's the in-person version, and you're based in Melbourne.
Yeah, so I can deliver. Yeah, so I'm in Melbourne. I can deliver face-to-face in Melbourne, but if you're somewhere else in the country or in a regional area or whatever it is, I can do it remotely as well, and it's quite interactive. It's not just a standard presentation. The students will actually be doing things. I incorporate a lot of Harvard visible thinking framework into it. So there's a lot of thinking that takes place, and it's not just about me, sort of spruiking things to them or, being the sage on the stage. It's about getting the students to think about things as well as providing them with some information and making it hands-on and interactive. So quite a lot of fun.
Fantastic. I'll put your web address down here so any schools can contact you via your web address.
Great, thank you.
Now, look, one last question. What lights you up?
What lights me up? Wow. That's a good question. What does light me up? It's hard to sort of pinpoint one thing because there's a lot of things. I think it comes down to what I'm passionate about. I mean, my family lights me up, and if they're happy, I'm happy is what I always tell them. So that's certainly, number one on my list. But I I like having a balance in life. So as long as I've got that balance, then I'm happy and lit up, I suppose.
No, I like that,
I don't know, I haven't really answered that very well.
No, you did. You know what? Just by thinking about your family and just going, okay, my family lights me up. That's the most important thing. I love that, because if everything starts from there, then you're home and hosed. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for spending time with me. I've got your web address down at the bottom of the screen so schools can contact you. I love the work you're doing, and let's bring more empathy back, and let's equip these kids to be more skilled and better human beings as well. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.